You.
I'm doing good. Did you have a good holiday?
It is, yeah. Pretty chill. We're actually doing, I guess, dinner today.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, one of the.
Yeah, we did two for one yesterday. So I got my stuff. Got filled up. Yeah, but it was good. We went to Rochelle's grandmother's house and then over to her mom's house afterwards.
Nice.
Yeah, it's about an hour and 40 minutes north, Bowling Green, Missouri, and then Pittsfield, Illinois.
Oh,
Two
wow.
locations that we went. Yeah, so we had a little bit of driving yesterday too. So,
I don't think
but it's good.
I did the beat down yesterday morning, and then I don't think I left the house the rest of the day other than to go out to the wood pile to restock. Yeah.
Did you guys have a good turnout there?
Yeah, we had six people.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time.
Well, it's always an interesting reason why Thanksgiving Day for most people, unless you're out of town, that you can't get out and post. I did
Yeah.
not, however. With that said, uh, but we didn't end up leaving town until about 10 a.m. or so. I probably could have, but I don't know. Just chose to have one of those days, stay home with the wife, and not have to scurry out the door at
I get it.
the
I
break of
get it.
dawn. Yeah, man. Sometimes you need those.
I'm trying to stay consistent through the holidays, not consider it a vacation from consistency. So
Right. Yeah, and guys, um, from the intensity aspect to the consistency. Because there's really, the way I see it, there's only two factors in how you're going to, make progress, and you're going to either do it with consistent approach or you're going to do it with bursts of intensity. And
right.
I think each of them plays their role, but in the wintertime, the intensity is that much harder, I think. If you're trying to set PRs for your times, and we work outside, or we work out
Mhm.
outdoors. And so that's a factor that you can't deny. Um, and so to me, it would be wiser to kind of put the emphasis on consistency uh, throughout the tougher times of the year, and just get that show up factor,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of grumbling about the weather already. That's a fact.
Well, this morning was tough. This morning was 25, at least out here it was. So
Yeah.
it was one of the newer, and I guess we've got some snow coming this way too tomorrow.
Yeah. That's what they say. We shall see how that turns out.
Yeah, dude, I really liked your text that you sent me today. Um, got me thinking about the rugged individualism. Snag's rubbing it in here. He says the weather down in Florida is 80 degrees. Reading the comments here on that. Must be nice. Yeah, must be nice, Snag. Um, yeah, back to the topic of rugged individualism. Um, what was the other kind of the one you were contrasting it to? That's where I'm having a hard time, obviously in the gray area of rugged individualism and just being a selfish asshole.
Well, that was kind of like the the contrast was, rugged individualism versus being a lone wolf, right? So what does it mean? Does rugged individualism mean that you just do everything by yourself and you don't ever ask for help? Or does it mean like that you're capable, you're prepared, if like you take the personal responsibility to be prepared to help your team or your community and stuff? That's kind of what I was struggling with a little bit after the conversation the other day, was where to go with that.
Yeah, well, and I've heard you say this, but Kale, I believe, touched on it the other day in the meeting about using the opportunity to ask for help,
Mm,
as a way to give, that giving to others. Essentially, you can frame it that way. You can give the opportunity to others to be of assistance to you, to help you
right.
out. And it's getting that balance right of the rugged individualism aspect, doing everything that you're capable of doing until you are not, and then recognizing that point. And that's just really, really tough to get to that point of discernment where you better you better seek others. You better start to consider building a team, because your own rugged individualism is not going to make it. Um, it's not going to get you to the destination. Even though I hate that word,
Yeah.
it's not going to get you to where you're wanting to go. You recognize that point eventually, and I think the better leaders are the ones who discern that point probably sooner than others. They're able to continue driving forward. They're able to continue paving the path until they can't, and maybe even they recognize it well before they get to that point that they get stuck. They're proactively, preventing themselves from banging their head against the wall,
Right.
and so they're playing the role of the rugged individual who's trying to pave the frontier, trying to clear the way. Um, they're humble enough to not do it alone. When it
Mm,
that was tough. I mean, last week was tough for me. Last week, the percentage of when you should team that
right.
I was still wrestling with that. 80% of your tasks you should delegate to your team, or whatever that framework was. And it's life isn't simple, and
Mm,
like a video game. And so sometimes these want to team for it to get done. They're complicated, man, and you can't always tell. And they're integrated. One overflows with another one, and side when that task is, I guess, 80% achievable by somebody else. A lot, and so it been with last week's conversation, and then again with this week's conversation on equipping. There's really two different perspectives you can take. The individual perspective of how you are, I guess, equipping yourself, but the framework that Dread takes is different than that. It's more of how you will equip your team. And I just can't get over how arrogant that can appear sometimes, where you just think you know exactly what somebody needs to be doing,
Hmm.
and put themselves out there, and they have to lead the way in a
Right.
case. But
Well, and
to
I think part of what he's talking about too comes down to like proximity and discernment and you know um spending spending time with guys and knowing, I guess, the old saying is kind of figuring out what makes people tick, right? Like how you can, I guess it goes down to kind of like coercion and cajoling. You need something done, and there's a guy that if you phrase it a certain way, he'll do it, right? And then just I think he's kind of leaning into to stuff like that.
yeah, and I know it goes without saying that it's definitely an empathetic love language that has to be used with the discernment.
Hmm.
I think that's overlooked. I think it gets overlooked so often, especially just in modern culture. And the idea of team building is for a means to an end. And it simply gets turned into people being used too often. Um,
Well, with and
somebody,
his definition of a
you know,
team though is you are trying to it is to get to an end. You're trying to accomplish something, right? Because if not, you're just like what's he called, a
definitely,
club, when you just hang out together, you know.
for sure.
And that's the
But the
thing, is if you're
buy-in,
leading, you're always driving towards whatever that particular goal is.
I agree, and there should be that tension there. But I think the difference is getting the buy-in and getting the shared mission from the teammates, and not coercing them with um, bells and whistles, smoke and mirrors. And again, I'll just go to our modern capitalism culture that I like to complain about all the time. And it's just, I think that's what a lot of team building it consists of. People will get a raise, people will get a bonus, people will get some sort of attention. It's not mission driven. People sign up for teams all too often, and teams are created, I think, by leaders, not mission driven. Um,
Mhm.
and so, that's why, even bringing it back to F3, I always try to make it a practice to remind everybody the mission before I cue. We're here to plant, serve, and grow small workout groups for the invigoration of male leadership. So as we go through this series of bicep curls and as we bear crawl through a wet field, let's remember that there's the mission that we're doing, because it's all too often forgot. We're the tiniest little bit of instant grab, a week or a year end bonus, to get
Hmm.
us to for motivation. And so I always question, you know, is everybody on board the actual mission, or is there kind of a behind the scenes talk that's, or the where the board members know what's going on and everybody else doesn't, type of an idea.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's what's difficult for me, and I know that's coming again from a self-admitted diagnosed lone wolf, because I do see I definitely see the value in teamwork. It's hard to point to anything significant ever been done without multiple people, and so
Right.
it's nature. It's human nature. We do have to bind. I'm just you know still I don't I guess I don't know what I'm saying now, but I'm skeptical of I'm skeptical of the way most people choose to bind themselves. It's, and I want to, in this chapter last week, in talking about equipping a team, I really want to make sure that we go back to the basics and always remember that there's got to be some really good core thing, something meaningful that binds people within a team.
Hmm.
So yeah, I
Yeah, I
know
think
I
it's
took us.
there's kind of a weird thing too between um, one of the things he's talking about is he's kind of talking about stepping into a team, leader. You don't necessarily always get to form your team to accomplish what you're doing, but to take over. And I think that's where he talks about where he's talking about when you see what people are already doing good, you don't mess with that, right? And then you kind of drive towards the mission with tweaking the areas that aren't being done well. And I think this week he talks about like roles, and one of the things that struck me about that was you know there's two parts of it. If your receiver wants to play quarterback and he's always running over and trying to like push the quarterback out of the way and take the ball, then no matter what your plan is drawn out, is not going to work, right? But then also, there's another thing about that too, is the people who, as a leader, you see people who have more potential than what they're putting forth. Like we see guys a lot where, you know, you think a guy is ready to like step up and lead, but the guy doesn't see it in himself. And I think that's the equipping part of it, is where you put him in situations to have, small successes with leadership that makes him kind of want to maybe go in a direction that he doesn't naturally want to go, but he kind of grows in his competency and his ability. And then, I mean, there's tons of guys who you talk to about becoming like Psych Q, and they're like, they always, very rarely do you see a guy who's like, oh, I'm ready to be Psych. Like he's knocking on your door, like I want to be Psych Q. Those people
Yeah,
usually
where do we
worry
sign
you,
up to be site crew?
right? Those people usually worry you, right? Like the guy the first day is like, how do I win or something, where do I
Right.
sign up to win? Those guys, usually are make you a little nervous. But then there's the guy who, kind of sells himself short. And I think as the leader, you have to taper. One of those people, you obviously need to kind of slow down a little bit. And then the other person, you kind of need to give that push out the door.
Yeah. I wish there would have been a tie-in to the opportunity aspect, because we kind of touched on that a little bit the other day, but there's nothing in the chapter that's I believe that what you just said is exactly it. We talked about it a little bit the other day. In the Super Bowl or in the championship game, you equip your team to the max skill set, best players and best positions, best roles, which they
Hmm.
really talked about in the chapter this week. I think it needed to be made a little bit more clear that in the game time type of a deal, in the main event, that's what you're going to do. But to be prepared, to get prepared for that main event, depending on what time frame you want to look at, it would really help to give multiple guys opportunities for reps at quarterback. It would also help to maybe switch a few guys positions to explore that opportunity to fail, like we learned in that chapter of opportunity. And I think that's a huge portion.
Hmm.
It didn't get conveyed that way, I don't think. It was almost like your natural skill sets, more or less, is how you're going to be equipped. There wasn't talk about adapting, and as a leader, working that fine line, that gray area of encouraging somebody who may have the potential to be quarterback, and also reining in the macho, arrogant champs that maybe need a little bit of humbling. And I think that is a huge process, and it didn't get. I don't think Dredd gave it its due in the chapter of equipping,
Hmm.
and maybe he did that by design. Maybe it was, hey, just for this chapter, for simplicity's sake, we need to focus on its mission essential right now, and possibly I think now that I'm thinking about it, there was some mention about when the mission is essential, when it's a mission essential task, has to get done. I mean, you're putting Tom Brady in at quarterback, not the new guy.
Right.
Although that analogy is getting that metaphor analogy is getting pretty old these days. I
Hmm.
better come up with somebody else other than Tom Brady.
Hmm.
He'd probably lose the game.
I think they do. I think he does talk about that though, how the way the things stack. Like you said, going back to you know um, to finding your best team through opportunity. Given and he reiterates it in this chapter when he talks about you when you offer a guy an opportunity or when you equip a guy, you have to put him in situations where he's going to take where he's going to you put him in situations where you're going to be responsible for the fact that he fails at it, and you're going to have to accept responsibility for that, not just point the finger and say, well, it was his fault. And I think that's part of the process too. You let the guy lead the small task, and when things don't work out right, then you accept blame, you pass praise. If it works out great, he gets all the credit. If it doesn't work out, you take the blame, and then you kind of go back through the hierarchy or the tree that we have, because I always think all this stuff kind of like stacks on top of each other, and so you go back up the hierarchy, right? Like, does he does he need does he need more school? So you equip him, he comes up short. You go back to, does he need more schooling? Do you need to work with him a little bit more? Does he need
Hmm.
somebody to kind of, does he need to get under somebody's wing and give him some guidance? So there's the apprenticeship. And then you repeat the opportunity to him, and you put him in a situation where he can hopefully get a small win or fail. And when he fails, you take responsibility and start the whole process again, right? It's very cyclical. It's very stacked. It's not linear by any spade of the imagination.
Well, no, and it's complete. That was my point earlier when I was kind of going down the rabbit hole of anti-capitalist. It's anti. It's it's teamwork is that type of team building. Um, where the Q's making changes that's the title of the chapter, or the heading in the chapter is the Q makes changes in the team's membership to promote teamwork. So there's always some moving around, and there's always some adjusting, and there's always some, hey, we so and so needs to maybe take a class on, get schooled in this area.
Hmm.
um all of that, and we do that really well within F3. Obviously, we're trying to practice that same thing. We're we're not going to just bring somebody into the site queue because they can run a fast mile. um, and so we understand how to, what we'd like to develop within a team. I just don't see that, and I've never experienced it in what I would call the real world. And I don't know why. I don't know why businesses can't put together good teams. I don't know why. And what I think the difference is it's the lack of relationships. People talk about that they can spend 25 hours a week with somebody they work with, and they really don't know them. They can maybe small talk with them, but they don't know they have them pegged in a few categories. They maybe got them pegged as a liberal. They got them pegged as somebody that, yada, 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 in whichever of the categories that work. But there's no real relationship there. And to me,
Right.
I always just keep coming back to that, to where you've really got to know your teammates. if you actually are interested in leading them to the best of their ability and to the best outcome of the team. And it's fascinating to me. I don't know how I guess we, as in, Western society, has allowed things to become that way, but it is absolutely fascinating to me that I believe I haven't experienced true teamwork. Maybe with one of my wrestling teams, I think maybe a year or two within my college experience, we started. I think about some things that had happened, and it was true teamwork, real sacrifice from some individuals, and we maybe got to that level. But other than that, in what, again, I say the real world, I haven't experienced it. Now, granted, I haven't given myself that much opportunity to, and I've been working on that a lot more. But the and again, I think it's just a misconception of the average person when they say I'm on a team. Oh yeah, and I work for, and I'm in the, I'm on this team, and it's like,
Right.
no, that's just the wing that you work in. That's just the boss that you report to, and they
Right.
just call it a team.
Well, and
So
I
a lot
think,
of it is, by definition.
I think teamwork in a business sense, I think a lot of businesses have just lost it. I mean, they don't see the value in it. They We're pretty much just, we have 8 spots that need to be filled for 8 hours a day, and we just plug people into them. And there's not. I mean, most of the bosses are just, they're trying to hang on to their boss ship. They're not worried about developing. Usually, that's. I mean, very rarely do you have a business owner probably that's looking to pull people in and develop. I think it's maybe a sense of. I think it's like a lack of maybe mortality. I guess a sense of mortality, like you realize you're not gonna be able to do this forever, so you need to equip somebody else to do it. And it's I guess if you're the person who does something for your community, you see it more.
Well, we're back to that rugged individualism thing, kind of,
Right.
like, if they're just hiding it, why are you working if it's not to give back
Right.
to, to the community? Why are you making so much money?
Right.
And, top owner, why are you also interested in the next levels underneath of you making so much money? Because that usually is the incentive, that I can help you make more money. And, again,
Right.
it's like, that's great. But again, lost within that is the, why would I want to make more money? Well, it should be kind of built in. With more money means more, fruit for the community, and
Right.
however that's, should be passed on.
Well, and that
Living
goes
third.
back to what you said about proximity and relationships. Is I mean, a lot of people are trying to make a lot of money to buy a nice car that they drive around to impress people that they don't even know, or buy a nice house to impress people that drive by their house that don't know who they are. You know, so I mean, I think the
Yeah, and
key
it's not
point
even
of
just money though. A lot of it too is just attention, and I've been guilty of that as well. It's,
sure,
you don't even have to have money. You just want people to look at you.
yeah,
And
that's
so,
human. That's
if
human
that,
nature.
right, but if it ends with that, if that's the end game, is that I just want people to look at me, which is fine if I can then send people's attention to the greater purpose. Good, you've caught a glimpse of me, and now because you've seen me, you should be able to look higher. If you don't pass that on, if it just ends with, there, I've got your eyes on me, I'm so happy everybody's looking at me, and it's like, no, again, what is it that you're doing that everybody should be looking at? And then, because you can even make that same claim without money. If I'm getting attention just because people are looking at me, why would I want people to look at me other than
Right.
just to simply be vain? And hopefully there's another. there's more meaning attached to reasons for drawing attention to oneself.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
The I don't know. I struggled also with the role aspect of team building. I Dred's militaristic. He's pretty rigid and businesslike. I don't know when we draw the line between dynamism, just being adaptable and having a variety of skills. And we did touch on this the other day, and when it is appropriate to pigeonhole somebody and say, this is what you do, and you're going to do it so well because we're going to need you so much in this role. And so because the world is complicated, and I don't know if we know exactly what skill sets. It does get complicated, and that was the other aspect that I struggled with. That a team like The Rock in WWE, a team member must know his damn role, know your role, and shut your damn mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's probably my own personal bias because I enjoy exploring new things. I like trying new activities. I want to be better at something that I haven't tried before. I maybe have ADHD of the mind where I get bored with something and I want to try something new.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be a little bit of that going on, but I see value in that too. I do see value in expanding one's skill sets vertically.
Yeah, but that's not valuable in a team. Like if we're trying to accomplish a mission, if we're trying to win a basketball game and you suddenly decide that you want to work on hockey, work on your slap shot, that's not going to work out, right? It's a good it's a good life thing, you know. But as far as the focus of the team, if we're on a team and we're trying to accomplish something, you really do need people to lock in and not. That's kind of what he goes back to saying about, basically. I mean, there are times when you just need to shut your mouth and follow the leader, and
And that's
if you
it's
if you
really
don't if you
difficult
don't
to
want to
do.
go where the team is, if you don't want to be on the mission, don't be on the mission. And
Yep.
that's another hard part. That's probably the hardest part of leadership, and the place where I think a lot of leaders fail is when you recognize that you need to like I guess they call it, we call it in F3, we call it Black Tahoe someone, but sometimes people got to go, like they're not. And it's not necessarily, we think of the weak guy, the guy who can't cut it, but sometimes it's the guy who's really, really good, but he just can't. He's not on the team. He's not on the mission. And you gotta cut him, and that's a really hard thing to do. But generally, when it's done right,
It's even better for the individual getting cut if
yeah,
it's honest. If it's a truthful approach, to
right,
have more success doing something else. And so,
right,
it is difficult, but if you approach it with that love of, hey, it may not seem like it right now, but this is probably going to be best for everybody
right,
if you just hit the. But you hit it again. It's keeping the the aspect of role and knowing your role is so necessary and it's the equivalent of living third. It's, hey, see you, snag. And when you live third, it's so critical to remember who or what is first and second. And that is why that constantly reminding people what the mission is so
yeah,
necessary, and ourselves. Constantly reminding ourselves what the mission is, and that's why, even though it seems like we're just shoveling dog poop right now, this is what has to be done, and I am the best dog poop shoveler going for it. We can connect the
right.
dots to the mission. That's it's tough because, again, I think mission statements are pretty gooey. Oftentimes, they're fluffy. They don't make a lot of sense. I love F3's mission statement. I really
Right.
do, because I think it's practical. It provides a purpose, and it's not just fluff. So yeah, I think it is critical to keep mission oriented.
Yeah, and even that though, I mean, we say that all the time, right? But do you have to, how often are we checking to make sure we're actually doing that, right? It's like, I mean, the mission statement
Well,
with F3 is how many parts there's there's plant, serve, and grow for the invigoration of male community leadership. Well, are we checking that mission all the time to make sure that we're still mission focused? Or are we doing,
I think it could be done more. I
are
think
we
we could
doing a lot
do a
of
better job of
planting?
that.
Are we doing a lot of serving? Are we doing a lot of growing? It's just part of the, I think that's a good, part of the process too.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, you said something the other day, and I had touched on it a couple weeks ago about getting guys out into the community, doing some of the races, some of the events. Um, take it away from the AOs, take it away from the just F3 events, which are
Right,
great. They invigorate what we're doing. They are the foundation of what we're doing, but the community is actually the mission. At the end of it,
right,
it is to the community, and community with a capital C isn't just an F3 event. The cashier at QT is everywhere. And so, it's about bringing what we're doing, I think, within our AOs, within our Slack channel, all of that, and connecting it, boots to the ground outside in the community.
right.
Say, it was awesome. I had an opportunity to interact with a couple little kids um, right after we talked on Wednesday about making eye contact, and it was on the playground. I was there with my kids as well, so it made it a little easier. But this little girl, she was 7, and man, I think we made her day, made her weekend probably. My whole family was just giving attention to her on the playground, and we got her into a cartwheel contest with my daughter, and yada yada yada. And it just reminded me of taking what we do, the first F, and it's something that I've been grateful enough to be blessed with a skill set there, and turning it back into something more profitable for the community instead of just my own mirror that I get to look at myself in.
Right.
It did, but I'm glad you said that, because it is just another reminder, an opportunity to look people in the eye and let them know that they exist, and so do we, and we share the same space.
Right. Yeah, I'm bad. I mean, that probably was popped into my head because I'm so bad at it. I'm I'm 5 minutes ahead of where I'm at, and not, get lost in the moment, or it's very easy to not be present when you're present.
Yeah, we have our own problems that we have to deal with first, and
Right.
on the pike, and we've always got our own problems, and there's always something that we nose to the phone for, and it's it is about that demon this day and age, far as you can, to stay present in the moment. And again, why would you do that? Why would you stay present in the moment just for your own sake? And that runs dry real quick. If you just sit there and meditate and try to be present by yourself, what the heck would you do that for? So if you take it
Right.
one step farther, why do I want to be present? So that I can interact with others.
Hmm.
That might keep us a little bit more present
Hmm.
minded if we Like that.
You
All right,
know,
man. I feel like
hey,
I'm
one last thing I want to
kind
touch
of
on
floating off into abstract land. Go
that
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
nobody touched on this the other day. It was kind of funny in the whole analogy of the bank robbery thing. You know, you have four jobs that need done, right? And he was talking about when you're a leader, when you're forming a team, you want to find proficient people, right? So you have four roles to fill. You want to find four proficient people. But he says, if they're not available, you find four willing people and you teach them to be proficient, right? And I think that's another place where I think we miss the mark a little bit with when we're on a team. I think we're always looking outside the team, right? Like when you're on the team and you see the guy that's always going to make your team better, right? But how often do you look at your own team and think, I can train this guy up to be better than he is, instead of looking outside to bring this guy in, and like, we see that at, people will, people will be putting together a beat down and they'll be like, oh, if I can get so and so to show up, this is going to be epic. Instead of, hey, these three guys showed up willingly and they're ready to go. And so anyway, I really liked that little. It's like one of those little. It's like a sentence long part of this chapter, but it really stuck out with me. About the 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 willing and the able versus always searching for the best. I guess the best or the most proficient.
Well, there's a spirit of gratitude in that tucked in there too. Just being grateful for who showed up for the day, rather than wishing that so and so and so and so, if they could have been here, or if we had a guy that had a truck and we could do this. It's
Right.
there's a spirit of gratitude that could just be there for the moment and to make the best of that moment. And then, like you said, then you get the opportunity to teach guys to build your team. That was, and you did hit it a while back. There's a different perspective from everybody coming towards teamwork, because again, are we talking about being able to build our own team and work with the group that we have, or are we talking about a team that's just kind of been given to us? And
Right.
there's two different perspectives there. But I thought about it later about how we get to pick our team in a sense. Somebody said it maybe about their spouse. We get to pick our marriage,
Right.
but we don't get to pick our kids.
Right.
And you know, uh, I didn't get to pick my kids, and for a better example, my wife didn't get to choose her kids on even another level. And so, but there we are with a team that, for lack of a better words, we're stuck with. And
Right.
so, what do you do then? You just don't send your kids off to the adoption services and make sure you get one that's gonna be in the league by the time he's 18.
Right.
Even though that would pay bills, that would be effective, and that would get a bunch of this or that. So it's just
Hmm.
interesting the different perspectives we can take to a team building conversation.
Right. Yeah. It's there's plenty of twists and tribulations and yeah.
Yeah, I'm pumped, though, for another year of Q Source. I've already been thinking about it. I'm excited to take on. I got the queue out here for Q Source coming in January, so
Oh wow.
I'm going to be leading our group. Yeah, I'm going to be leading our group out here through the next year, and it is funny how it's without being blast. You open up the Bible, and it seems like wherever you are at, you're going to find a little nugget of wisdom that makes you chew on it a little bit, and kind of redirects you and reorients you in a better trajectory. That
Right.
I've really been thankful for our group, and the depth that we've taken each one of these chapters.
Well, and that's what we talked about. I guess my first year in Q source, we used to talk about it quite often. Was the big Q versus the big T versus the little T's, right? I mean, the big T truths, whatever you're in, the big T truths are going to come through, and that's like Q source is all about virtuous leadership. Well, you would have a hard time convincing me that you can have virtue without some kind of belief in a higher power than yourself, because like where does virtue come from? Like, so
Yeah. No, it doesn't
it
come from
all
us.
does it all does it all does tie together and kind of dovetails into each other. So
You bet. All right, man. Well, let's close her down. It's been
all
good.
right, bud. Good seeing you.
Best
Good talk.
regards to,
Happy
yeah,
Thanksgiving.
you
All
enjoy
right,
your
see you,
dinner
man.
today.
I
Love you.
will.
Bye bye.
Love you too. Bye.